Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the DCI number 940 in a 32D with a 9BFB. And this is an automatic flush bolt with a bottom fire bolt. BFB, bottom fire bolt. This is intended for a wood door application, and this setup is specifically intended for a pair of fire-rated doors that you will see in a hospital. Hospitals are standard practice for a hospital is to not drill anything into the floor, like a flush bolt strike. So in order to make the opening compliant, there will be included a bottom fire bolt, and we'll talk about that in a moment. This is an automatic flush bolt in the sense that every time the door closes, the trigger is going to be depressed and the bolt's going to pop up. Okay, this is just the dust box, a piece of galvanized sheet metal, galvanized. It's wipe coat galvanized is what it is. So let's dive into this. The application for this is going to be a bolt at the top of the door, a fire bolt at the bottom, which will be required to keep two doors secured in the event of a fire. It was tested that way. It was approved the way it was tested, which it passed the fire test, obviously, with the bottom fire bolt. And you can have an application where you want the inactive door to be able to be operated when the active door is open. Because what happens is, and this is a wood door application, so it's going to look a lot more like this when it's installed. You'll have your finished faceplate out here, which this client ordered US32D, which is 630, which is satin stainless steel. I'll show you that in a moment. Every time the active door is opened, the trigger comes back out, unlatching the inactive door. So obviously what you need to have in this instance really ought to be a coordinator. This is not intended to have the door closer obviously close before the after the active door is already closed, because it wouldn't work that way. You have some sort of traditional latch on the active door. So in order to comply with the requirements for the fire rating of the door, but your requirements of having both doors that you can easily open the active first, then just push the active open, you're in good shape. But you do need a coordinator, meaning a device that will basically tell the active door, stand by, hold up, let the inactive door close, and then the active door can close behind it. And that will not only latch you at the top so that you're secured, but in the event of a fire, that fire bolt is going to come screaming out at a certain temperature. Well beyond the temperature that anyone would be standing at the opening, and comes out with such force so as to not only burst the cap that's on the opposite side, okay, but also secure the door and hold it secured. It's not meant, not required, and it's not going to operate after the fire has ceased, because all it needs to do is keep that door secured during that fire. And that's what the BFB, the bottom fire bolt, does. You can have a set of top and bottom automatic flush bolts, but the instance where you're going to see only a top and then a fire bolt is when you don't want to have any penetration into the floor. Hospitals, again, notorious for that. It's a hazard to have a hole in a floor. It works against the sanitation goal of the hospital itself. You might have some sort of a special application where you don't want to pierce anything into the doors. I might think that a pair of doors that might have some sort of carpet or some sort of specialty floor design, putting a strike into the floor might be a trip hazard, even if it's a dust-proof strike. You might have an application where you can't pierce into the floor because you don't want to, or you might have heating running through the floor where you can't drill into it, or you run the risk of shorting the system that is run underneath there. But really it's going to be because you have a fire-rated door and you cannot pierce into it for cleanliness is the bottom line. Now, this is a unit that is used for a wood door. They obviously make them for metal doors as well, but the metal door option is what's called an extension bolt, where it's going to have a long rod that will go from the body prepped in the door through the edge of the door up to the bolt head. When you have a wood door principle, you don't have the ability to take advantage of that hollow space behind the stile, which does not exist in a wood door. So what makes this appropriate for a wood door is, if this was a metal door, it would look like this. This would have a rod that would go 12 inches from the center up to the top or the bottom of the door. This bolt head would then be elongated. The way that you would machine this for a wood door would not be conducive to the fact that you would need to drill a really long hole 3/4 or so an inch away from the edge of the door, and do so without rupturing out the edge of the door. So when it's a wood door application, they go like this with this angle bracket, and now you can imagine in your head, mortising for this is really not that big of a deal, because it's not. It's actually quite easy. Well, actually, you'd be mortising for this is what you'd be mortising for. When you put it in context to seeing these geometric shapes, what do you have to mortise? The width of the top plate, the thickness of the plate, all the way this dimension. This body is going to be prepped all the way down to here. You've got a little bit of this thickness, the width, the thickness, this length. So it becomes really easy in your mind to understand, oh, okay, boy, with a router and a template, that's going to be really easy to get that installed. Not that it's not work, because it is work, but it's simple in your mind, and you can do it with common tools. Now, if it's a fire-rated door, you're not going to be prepping this in the field unless you are listed or licensed to do so, and contractors are not, building owners are not. What I'm trying to say is your door is going to come prepped from your door supplier for this hardware, and you'll be doing the attaching on this. This does bear the visual evidence of the fact that it is approved for use on fire-rated doors, an F or a UL. There are other symbols that you can see. That tells visually an inspector, a certified fire door assembly inspector or egress door inspector as myself, or the authority having jurisdiction, most certainly, this is permitted to be used on that fire-rated door. You could go back to the manufacturer of this bolt and say, produce for me the paperwork from UL that states this is conducive for the fire door assembly. And of course they could do that upon demand without any trouble whatsoever. Now the easy stuff first. This is going to be available in your typical finishes, your brasses, your bronze, your chromes, satin polished, nickels probably, oil rubbed bronze as well. The extended description information of this down below tells us that this is a combination of a top automatic flush bolt and a bottom fire bolt, UL listed for wood doors. The 940, which is what we are dealing with here, this is the 940 in the part number. This is used as a top. It can be used as a bottom as well. Just flip it over. Automatic flush bolt, meaning every time that active door closes, with the application of the strike that will be on the active door, it will make contact, okay, with the trigger, allowing it to work. This does have a override feature. If I prevent the bolt from moving and depress the trigger, the override kicks in. And that's handy to have because you don't want to break the device in the event that your strike is clogged or your doors are no longer aligned. It's a feature that you will find on, I think, everyone's automatic flush bolt. I've reviewed automatic flush bolts by probably everyone. I don't remember someone who doesn't have that override feature. The 9, there are no screws to, okay, the backup. The 9 BFB bottom fire bolt eliminates the bottom flush bolt and floor strike. It eliminates that. Allows for easier door prep and installation. Sure, you're not prepping a flush bolt in the bottom of the door or a strike in the floor. You're just prepping for the bottom, the fire bolt is what you're doing. The 9 BFB was designed for more play and misaligned doors, and I would imagine because you got a big target to hit with this bolt that's here. while it's not really permissible that doors be misaligned, a pair of doors, you know, can understandably have a small amount of deflection between the two. And, you know, if this is the inside dimension of this cap and I'm projecting out at this smaller dimension, you know, it can be ever so slightly misaligned. And I would imagine, and I'm not an expert on the subject matter, but under the actual events of a fire, and I don't know the 200 plus degree that this fire is at. I believe it to be 200 plus degree, although I don't have all the facts. Those doors are probably going to move a little bit. There's probably going to be something happening there because you're secured at the top. You'll be secured where the lock is, but there might be a little bit of movement on a door because what do you have? You've got extreme temperatures happening. I don't recall what happens in the first 90 or 120 seconds of a fire, but it goes from ambient to, you know, 1800 degrees and parks there really quick. So I would think a little bit of deflection is what they're driving at with that statement that it will more play on misaligned doors. I will contact the manufacturer and find out the temperature that this is activated at, just for purposes of having that knowledge, so that it's at least, you know, mid 200 degree is what I recall. It's well past the point of anyone standing at the opening, is just simply the bottom line. So continuing through the extended description, a smaller profile, making it less noticeable. That could only mean the bottom firebolt in that regard. It is petite, and we're going to go over the over the dimensional properties. Adjustable bolt head rods. Bolts can be adjusted 1/2 inch for unusual clearance, low closing force, and an override feature. So you can literally thread that to tailor your projection. Get it exactly where you want so that you have proper and full complete engagement of the bolt head into the strike, up to 1/2 inch. Okay. Low closing force, that means your door closer, even a handicap compliant closer, will still activate this. Override feature, we have demonstrated that. It will override. Satin stainless steel. What they do with the finishes on this hardware is the faceplates. You're swapping out faceplates. You are swapping out the strike, and then the scar plate. I think they're both really called strikes. And then your screw package. Okay, that's all you're swapping out. Everything else is the same components. Listings. UL listed 20-minute on wood doors up to 4090. Positive pressure rated. Available finishes we have already discussed. That bottom firebolt's going to be only available in a stainless finish, so that won't be necessarily something that you would have match. Now, there is a link below this video to the product information 2018 version. Their catalog has evolved with time naturally. Is fire rated for up to 90-minute in a pair of wood fire doors, obviously wood, and obviously a maximum of 90-minute being fire doors. Now, there is the product information 2018 version. There's also a prior version there as well. Retained them both just for the sake of having both pieces of data available to us. The same information, it's really a cut sheet is what it is for your use. Then we're going to move into the template. The template is the installation instructions. The template is the machining instructions. It is a 2-page document and is included with your hardware. This is a newer version that I can see here. Yes, it is. Okay, now we're going to push through the balance of this video and we're going to take a look at the installation instructions. There is a 2009 version and a 2015 version. The 2015 is scanned and uploaded there. I don't have it scanned and uploaded to the site just yet, but we're going to push through and take a look. So the bottom line is assuming that this is going on to a... Now we're going to go through the installation instructions, which are included and I have here in front of me. Basically, the installation instructions are dimensional properties of the item, and it's understood expressly. Prep the door for this, and then attach it with the simple set of screws that are included. Again, you shouldn't be prepping anything in the field at all. You wouldn't be if it's a fire-rated door. If for some reason you have a non-fire-rated door, you are certainly not limited by code from prepping the door and installing this. I have had people just want an automatic flush bolt in their residential application. I've had a gentleman not in the too distant past who had manual flush bolts, but no longer wanted to reach up and down to retract the latch bolts, and simply wanted the ability of that inactive door to be free every time the active door was opened. Apparently that other door was opened so often that that's what the client wanted. And it worked the way they had expected it to work, is my understanding. So looking at the installation instructions, you've got page 1. Page 1 shows you the dimensional properties of the 940. Okay? And we can go over that now. Going over the dimensional properties is also akin to understanding how to prep the door for it. The overall height of the faceplate is basically 8.5 inch. 8 and 17/32. Okay, so just heavy on 8.5 inch. The width is going to be 1 inch. Okay. Now, that's going to satisfy the lower left-hand corner, the width and the height. When you look in the lower right-hand area, you're going to see the information as it's showing you. You'll see the word Mortise is going to come up. And yes, indeed, that's what you're going to prep the door for. And by the way, there are screws that allow you to attach the top bracket directly to the body. Okay. There are also a couple of other nondescript screws that are here, and they are a couple of tiny, smaller machine screws. Right there, machine screw. You are going to literally lower right-hand corner. I just want to describe those screws. Wood door flush bolts will come with, this is called a corner style, also known as a wood door flush bolt, corner style. There are 2 small screws in the package that I just pointed out, small machine screw. Door face delamination, optional by others. Drill 3/16 hole, 3/8 deep in location shown on both sides of door. Tap holes for 832 machine screw. Install to each 832 by half flathead machine screw. So there's a hole here and there's a hole here. If you want, you can install screws in the face of the door that will then connect to the top bracket, but you have to tap those holes. The reasoning that they're saying door delamination, door face delamination, is study how much of the door you're removing, how much material you're removing. 2 inch deep, 7 1/4 inch tall. So what happens over time is that those door skins in the upper corner seem to move out a little bit, and they do. Some manufacturers will even give a very small finish washer as well. Obviously, DCI has determined that that's not necessary. I would absolutely encourage that process to be done, so much so that I think they should exclusively tap those holes all the time, because as far as I'm concerned, I've seen it where the door is literally coming apart over time and age. Door closing, closing, closing. What do you have? You've got exposed mineral core. Glue doesn't stick to mineral core, so the door can literally delaminate. there. It's a weak point, and those screws ought to be necessary. You don't see them often, but occasionally you see them. I certainly do see them because I'm looking for them when I'm in a hospital or an application where I know has them installed. Corner style wood door flush bolts. So we've got the faceplate dimension. I've just said to you that the depth is 2 inch by basically 7 1/4. 2 inch mortise depth. You're good with that. Mortise height, 7 9/32. Sure, 7 1/4 I said. Okay, a little bit heavy on that. Then all you're going to need to do is drill or is prep that 1 inch width, the thickness of that plate, which they've got at 1/8 of an inch, also 1/8 of an inch. This is going to be a little bit heavy on 1/8 of an inch. The best friend, the carpenter has two best friends, his router and his caliper. I'd be putting the caliper on all of these parts before I machined. I wouldn't necessarily machine it to the template because I don't believe that that's 1/8 of an inch. Okay, I don't believe it at all. In fact, it's 0.176, so almost 3/16. If you prep it 1/8 of an inch, you're fine, but the hardware's not going to be flush. So the caliper is really important. So your preparation, think of it in two steps. Your body prep and your plate prep. Your body prep is going to be the 2 inch, 7 9/32 by the width of the body. And they're not giving you a dimension other than the 1 inch. And while you could probably make it ever so slightly smaller, it's not called out that way. 1 inch wide, 7 9/32, 2 inch deep. That's your first prep. Then, with a 1 inch 2 flute carbide router bit, plunge router, then you're going to make your prep that's 1 inch wide, and they're giving us as that dimension 6 1/32 of an inch, so just heavy on 6 inch. Right on. Radius corners, that's going to be a 1/4 inch radius. Okay. I said a 1 inch diameter. You're going to use a 1/2 inch diameter, forgive me. 1/2 inch diameter, 2 flute carbide bit, 1/4 inch radius, 1/4 inch radius. Being a wood door, that's nice that you have those radiused corners. Then, of course, the rest of your height, which is that 8 and 17/32, less your 7 9/32, which is what, 1 1/4 maybe? Something in that range? Yeah, right in that range. Okay. That's how your prep is. So you're going to do your body, the deep prep. You're then just going to notch out for just this area. Then you're just going to come back and do this. Now, I like doing the body prep first. That's because I reduce the chance of doing the plate prep, the finished prep, and then doing the body prep and nicking the prep. I like to do deep stuff first in the 1 in 100 chance that I'm just going to nick something because I gotten lazy and not waited for the router to completely turn off before I exit off the workpiece. So that's the way that I like to do it. And if you have a CNC equipment, if you have a CNC router, then you're in good shape. So that will be your preparation. You've got your active door strike. That's listed there, and we discussed how that works. Overall height of that is going to be 1 1/4 inch. Overall width, about 1 3/4 inch. Obviously, that's going to rest over the edge of your door. It's going to slightly encroach into the opening ever so slightly. If you have a metal edge set on there, I wouldn't worry about installing this. You've got a strike that's installed there. Then you have your top strike, and that's going to be 2 9/32. Then it's going to be 15/16 wide. They want 31/32. Okay, stainless piece of finished material. Then after that, we get to page 2, and the only thing that we need to look at there is the 9BFB, the mounting instructions for the firebolt. They want it between 4 and 6 inch from the bottom, and that's because that's where it needs to be. That's where it's been tested. That's where it's been listed for use. Be sure to install it there under the duress of a fire door assembly inspection. If it's installed up at 18 inch and someone knows where that's supposed to be installed, it'll be found out of compliance. They're going to want a 9/16 diameter hole, 1 5/8 inch deep minimum. 9/16 hole, let's take a look. Yeah, sure. Little collar over there to make it fit nice and tight, which is just heavy on 9/16. Overall diameter of the face, 0.762. That body diameter, 0.492. They do want 9/16 because that shim that's there is coming in at 0.55, 0.555. So just to compress it inside there is what the point is. Got a couple of tangs that are there that we can kind of see that's going to keep it in place. Then you've got that cap or plug, they call it, on the other side. They want a 1-inch diameter hole for that. This has an outside dimension of 1.204. They want a 1-inch hole for that. And this would be very typical of what you would see. Yeah, 1.062. A couple of tangs that are going to pressure fit into the edge of the door. This cap literally is what you see in door contact switches by GE makes them, other people make them, and then you'll have a magnet that will be capped inside of there. So this piece of equipment, this piece of plastic is typical. This goes on the active door. Your fire door bolt goes on the inactive door is the way that it's listed, the way it's been literally listed. It's also listed that way in the installation instructions. The 9 BFB will project during a fire. Do not cover with any edge-mounted door hardware. If you have metal edges, this needs to sit outside of that naturally. If you have any mortised door edges, not only astragals, but if you had like a 3-foot tall mortised door guard, you've got to make sure that you account for this needing to be able to shoot into and through its cap. Okay. There's nothing else on the installation instructions to discuss as it pertains to the 940 with a 9 BFB. The name DCI is synonymous with very good quality trim and auxiliary hardware. I'm partial to DCI, and it's because they are a well-oiled machine in the sense that you send them an order, and they will, within a day or so, send you a tracking number. It's just simple, it's straightforward, it's no nonsense. When I call there for checking stock, or which, there's nothing special in checking stock, but when I call there for technical support, the person who answers the phone can usually answer the question, and if that person can't, the person they put me in touch with can. Quite expert in terms of the subject matter. No nonsense, as I said, a relatively petite footprint within the industry, but as it was said to me many, many years ago, you figure out what you can do and you sell the S out of it, the SH, etc., out of it. And DCI does that. They know what they can do and they just nail it. Very good quality material, very much on par with everyone else, and their inventory is usually very deep. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the DCI products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. If you've not really heard of DCI, I would very much encourage you to look at their roller latches and their door holders. You've seen the parts, you've bought it likely from other people, but you've not realized the cost savings that DCI and their stock inventory will be able to help you with. Any questions on the 940 with the 9 BFB bottom firebolt or any other DCI product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you very much.